My wife thought her affair would stay my secret, until I silently tore apart her life and left her with nothing. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting in a dimly lit bar, nursing a whiskey, plotting how to dismantle my wife's life piece by piece. But here I am, 3 years into a marriage that turned out to be a house of cards, and I'm holding the match. My name's Ethan Carter, 32, decent job in logistics, a quiet life I thought I'd built with Claire. She was the kind of woman who lit up a room, all sharp wit and warm smiles. At least, that's what I saw when we met at a friend's wedding 4 years ago. She spilled champagne on my shirt, laughed it off, and by the end of the night, I was hooked. I should have known then. Someone that charming always has a shadow. The first 2 years were good. Not perfect, but solid. We bought a little house in Bristol, spent weekends fixing it up, talked about kids someday. Claire worked freelance as a graphic designer, which gave her flexibility I envied. I'd come home from 12-hour shifts, and she'd have dinner ready, or we'd order takeaway and watch old movies. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Then the cracks started showing, subtle at first, like hairline fractures in glass. She'd be on her phone more, secretive about it, laughing at texts she wouldn't share. She started working late at coffee shops, but her laptop history was suspiciously clean. I'm not proud of checking, but doubt's a hell of a drug. It hit me 6 months ago, the truth I'd been dodging. I came home early one day, boss let us out after a shipment snafu, and found her car in the drive, but the house was empty. Weird, but not damning. Then I saw the note on the counter. Out with Jess, back late. Jess was her best friend, the alibi she'd used a dozen times. I called Jess on a hunch. She picked up, cheerful as ever, and said, "Hey, Ethan, haven't seen Claire in weeks. Everything okay?" My stomach dropped. I hung up, sat on the couch, and waited. She stumbled in at midnight, reeking of wine and something musky that wasn't her perfume. She froze when she saw me, then smiled that dazzling smile. "You're up late," she said, like I was the one out of place. I didn't confront her then. I should have, but I wanted proof, something I could hold up and say, "Explain this." So I turned into a man I didn't recognize. I tracked her phone's location, watched her leave for work, and head to a flat across town. I followed her once, saw her slip into a sleek black Audi with a guy I didn't know, tall, slick, the kind of man who wore cologne you could smell from 10 feet away. They didn't see me parked across the street, didn't see me snap photos of them kissing like teenagers against his car door. That was the moment Ethan Carter, the trusting husband, died. What was left was a man with a plan. Her name for him was Mark. I found it in her emails, sloppy of her to use her personal account. Mark Ellison, some mid-level exec at a marketing firm, married too, with a kid on the way. Claire had been seeing him for months, maybe longer. The emails were a goldmine. Flirty at first, then explicit, then reckless. "Can't wait to get you alone this weekend," he wrote last month. "Ethan's working overtime again." "Perfect," she replied. My overtime, the extra shifts I'd taken to save for a holiday she'd begged for, funded their little affair. The irony burned. I could have stormed in, screamed, thrown her out. Most men would. But that's not me. I'm patient. Logistics taught me that. You don't move a shipment without knowing every stop, every risk. Revenge isn't a tantrum. It's a strategy. So I kept quiet, played the oblivious husband, and started building my case. I hired a PI, a grizzled guy named Tony who smelled like cigarettes and regret. "You sure about this?" he asked, flipping through the photos I'd given him. "Once you see it all, no going back." I nodded. "I want everything." Tony delivered. Photos, hotel receipts, even audio from a bug he'd slipped in her purse. Claire giggling with Mark, planning a weekend away while I was out of the picture. The best part? She'd been dumb enough to use our joint credit card for one of their nights at a posh hotel in Bath. 50 quid on room service while I ate cold leftovers at home. Tony smirked when he handed me the file. "She's not even good at this," he said. "Amateur hour." I spent weeks refining the plan. Divorce was obvious. She'd get half the house, maybe alimony, walk away with more than she deserved. No, I wanted her to lose everything. Her lover, her reputation, her smug little world. And I wanted Mark to burn too. Step one was exposure, but not the messy kind. I didn't need tears or shouting matches. I needed precision. First, I tackled Mark. His wife, Sophie, deserved to know, and I'd make sure she did. I created a burner email, sent her an anonymous zip file, photos, emails, the works. I kept it simple. Your husband's been busy. Thought you should see. I tracked the IP. She opened it within an hour. 2 days later, Tony tipped me off. Sophie had kicked Mark out. He was crashing a mate's place, calling Claire nonstop, panicking. Good. Let him squirm. Claire noticed a shift. She came home one night, tense, checking her phone every 5 minutes. Something wrong? I asked, all innocence. She jumped, forced a smile. Just work stress, she lied. I almost laughed. Mark's chaos was bleeding into her life, and she didn't even know I was the architect. Step 2 was financial. She loved her lifestyle, so I'd choke it off. I canceled the joint card, moved my savings to a new account, and forgot to pay her phone bill. She stormed in the next day, waving her dead phone. What the hell, Ethan? It's off. I shrugged. Bank glitch, maybe. Call them. She couldn't. Mark was blowing up her line, and now she was cut off. The real blow came with her family. Claire's parents, Tom and Linda, adored me. Thought I was the son they never had. She'd kept them in the dark, feeding them stories about our happy marriage. I invited them over for dinner, played the doting husband while she squirmed. Mid-meal, I dropped the bomb. Claire's been distant lately, I said, voice heavy. I found some stuff, emails, photos. I think she's seeing someone. Linda gasped. Tom's face hardened. Claire went white. That's not true, she stammered, but I slid my phone across the table. Screenshots undeniable. Linda started crying. Tom slammed his fist down. How could you, he growled. She fled the room, sobbing, but the damage was done. Her parents cut her off that night, emotionally, and I later learned from their will. Step 3 was her career. Freelancing's fragile. Reputation is everything. I tipped off a few of her big clients, anonymously, about personal issues affecting her work. Attached a blurry photo of her with Mark at a bar, enough to raise eyebrows. Within a week, 2 contracts dropped her. She came home ranting about bad luck. Oblivious, I'd lit the fuse. Her income dried up fast. Without me footing the bills, she was scrambling. The final act was the house. It was in my name. I'd bought it before we married, thank God. But she'd nested there, made it hers. I filed for divorce, citing adultery, and got a locksmith in while she was out. She came back to new locks, her stuff boxed on the porch. Ethan, what the fuck? She screamed, banging on the door. I opened it just enough to hand her the papers. You've got an hour before I call the police, I said, voice flat. She stared at me, eyes wild, like she was seeing me for the first time. You can't do this, she whispered. Watch me, I replied, and shut the door. Mark's life imploded too. Sophie filed for divorce, took the kid, drained his accounts. Last I heard, he'd lost his job, too distracted by the mess I'd made for him. Claire tried calling, texting, begging to talk. I blocked her. She showed up at my work once, mascara streak, pleading. I'm sorry, Ethan, I messed up. I looked through her, cold as stone. You don't get to be sorry, I said. You get to live with it. Security escorted her out. It's been 3 months. I sold the house, moved to a flat in Cardiff, started over. Claire's a ghost now. Broke, alone, crashing with a friend who'll ditch her soon enough. Her parents won't take her calls. Her clients won't touch her. Mark's a wreck. Last seen drowning in a pub. I didn't yell, didn't hit, didn't break a single law. I just took everything they valued and crushed it, slow and deliberate, like a machine grinding gears. Revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, patient, and absolute. And I sleep just fine.